You ever get that feeling? You're so bored, so completely bogged down by some tedious task that you just start laughing? It is one of the strangest feelings of modern life, and today we are going to figure out exactly what it is and why it happens.
I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. You're hours deep into some repetitive task. Maybe you're stuck in an automated phone menu for what feels like an eternity, or you're just staring at a spreadsheet, and then it happens. You're not happy, you're not amused, but this laugh just escapes.
It's this totally surreal moment, right? The sheer, mind-numbing nature of what you're doing just tips over into total absurdity. It feels like your brain just throws its hands up in the air and short circuits, and it's a feeling that doesn't really fit any of our standard emotional boxes. So what is this feeling? It feels so specific to our modern world. To get to the bottom of it, we first need to take a look at the kind of emotions that really define our day-to-day lives.
We tend to think about emotions in these epic terms, rage, terror, grand passion. But cultural theorist Sion Nage argues that modern life is way more often defined by what she calls ugly feelings. These are the smaller, less dramatic, and kind of nagging emotions like irritation, anxiety, and just plain boredom. They don't give you that big, satisfying release or catharsis. They just sort of stick around.
And to really crack this case, we have to turn to the work of Sion Nage. She's developed this really powerful way of understanding the unique emotional landscape of the 21st century.
See, Ngai argues that we live in what she calls a fully administered world. It's a world of complex systems, of bureaucracies and technologies that often just leave us feeling passive and powerless. This is the world of obstructed agency, where our ability to actually do something meaningful is blocked. Just think about trying to argue with an automated phone system. There's nobody to argue with. Your agency is totally obstructed.
And what's crucial here is that these ugly feelings aren't about good versus evil. They're amoral. They don't give you that satisfying, clean release. Instead, they just linger. They might be weaker than a huge passion like rage, but man, they can stick around for hours, even days. And here's the key insight. These feelings don't solve problems. They diagnose them. They're a symptom of a situation where you are fundamentally, completely stuck.
Okay, so let's get specific. It turns out there is actually a name for that exact feeling we started with, that bizarre mix of boredom and being overwhelmed. Nage calls it stuplimity.
Stuplimity. It's this weird mashup of stupor and sublimity. It's that feeling you get when you're faced with a process that is so huge, so repetitive, so endlessly complex that it becomes overwhelming, but in a really, really boring way. It's kind of like the sublime, but for the spreadsheet era.
And this brings us right back to where we started. Stuplimity is triggered by exactly these kinds of things: that fatigue-inducing data entry, confronting systems so vast they're impossible to even wrap your head around, or just that slow, maddening pileup of tiny errors in a complex process. It's the feeling of your brain hitting a wall that's built of pure, unadulterated tedium.
Okay, so that explains the stupor and the overwhelming boredom. We have a name for it: stuplimidity. Awesome, but that's only half the puzzle. Why on earth does this feeling make us laugh?
To answer that, we've got to shift gears a little bit. We're going to leave cultural theory behind for a moment and turn to philosophy. Because it turns out thinkers like John Allen Paulos have found a really deep connection between the act of thinking and the act of laughing.
For a long time, philosophers have argued that laughter isn't just about being happy. One of the main triggers for laughter is something called incongruity. Basically, a gap between what we expect to happen and what we actually get. We laugh when reality doesn't match our mental model, when a system breaks down in a totally absurd way.
Paulos points out that philosophers laugh at something called a category mistake. It's like asking to see the university after you've already seen all the individual buildings and labs. The system that we've built, the one that's causing our stuplimidity, it becomes so nonsensical that it feels like one giant category mistake. Laughter then isn't just an emotional outburst, it's a philosophical response. It's you recognizing the absurdity of it all.
All right, we have all the pieces of the puzzle now. Let's put them together and finally see the complete picture of that weird, modern laugh.
And to tie this all up, we need one final idea. Think of it this way. Our feelings aren't just random things happening inside us. They are shaped, literally produced by the world around us. And our world, this world of systems and spreadsheets, well, it's producing some new kinds of feelings.
So here's how it all clicks into place. First, the context. We're living in Nage's administrated world. Second, this world produces that very specific feeling of stupilimonity.
Third, as Polonus might say, the system becomes so tedious that it feels absurd, like a fundamental error in logic, a big incongruity. And finally, the response. Laughter. But it's not a laugh of joy, it's a laugh of recognition. It is the sound of a human mind recognizing the utter absurdity of the machine.
So the next time you find yourself laughing at a spreadsheet, just remember this. It does not mean you're breaking down. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It is a deeply intellectual and philosophical response. It is a sign that you are lucid enough to see the system for the absurd, mechanical thing that it really is. It's a sign that you're actually paying attention.
I want to leave you with this thought from the philosopher Soren Kierkegaard. Maybe that strange, empty laugh isn't a sign of breakdown at all. Maybe it's one of the most honest responses we can possibly have to modern life. It's the laugh of seeing things clearly. And, well, once you truly see it, it can be pretty hard to stop.